happy Women's History Month. I'm so glad to see all of you here. My name is Dr. Anika Daniels-Osaze, and I am the Director of Diversity, Education, and Research in the College of Medicine. And I'd like to welcome all of you here for today's event. We have a lot planned for you. We have our keynote speaker here today. But first, before I introduce her, I'd like to just talk to you about the reason why we are having this event. And it's in honor of Dr. Dale Blackstock. I'm not sure how many of you remembered her when she was here. She worked both here and at Kings County Hospital. She was a beloved daughter of Brooklyn who, despite or maybe because of her beginnings, possessed the ambition and resilience to excel as a physician, teacher, mentor, mother, sister, and wife. She arrived in the world in 1950 to circumstances that would make any level of future success seem unlikely. But her single mother, who raised her and her 5 siblings on public assistance, was resourceful and determined. Despite struggling to make ends meet, her mother always emphasized the importance of intellectual curiosity, which rubbed off on Dale in helping to broaden her horizons through books and the written word. She actually graduated from medical school in internal medicine and did her residency at Harlem Hospital. She is actually triple boarded in internal medicine, nephrology, and then she actually went back and got another area, geriatric medicine, correct. She was active in the Daniel Hale Williams Society when she was here, the Provident Clinical Society, which was part of the National Medical Association Brooklyn Chapter, the Dr. Smith McKinney Steward Society, which was named after the first Black woman to earn a medical doctorate in New York State, and she was involved in the American Women's Medical Association. She has done so much in her field that we really thought it was apropos to name this lecture and award ceremony after her. And I'm also pleased to say that one of her daughters, her twin daughters, Dr. Oni Blackstock, is here with us today. So if you just want to stand. So both Oni and Uche Blackstock followed in her footsteps and became physicians as well. And Dr. Uche Blackstock was actually a resident at Kings County Hospital. In emergency medicine, yes. Of course, Dr. Lucchese, a great field. So in her honor, we decided that we wanted to have this annual event. And this is our 3rd annual iteration of our Women's History Month event. So at this time, I would like to bring up our keynote speaker, who today will be talking about the challenges and successes of Latinx physicians, and also dealing with the field of epigenetics. Her name is Dr. Lissette Delgado-Cruzata. She is an assistant professor of molecular biology at John Jay College in the City University of New York. She earned her master's in public health and a PhD at Columbia University and her undergraduate degree at the University of Havana. She started as a basic molecular biologist carrying out genetic research in yeast, but found that she could apply her skills to population studies, integrating her molecular biology expertise to the understanding of disease etiology and progression. She carries out molecular epidemiological studies investigating epigenetic biomarkers in chronic diseases. She is also interested in the associations of those biomarkers with lifestyle and behavioral factors. So at this point, I'd like to bring up Dr. Delgado-Cruzata.
Hello, everyone. Never had so many things connected to myself, so I'll try not to speak too loudly. Thank you for that introduction. A little bit overwhelmed. I don't know, it's exciting to be here. And I'm not a physician, let me just say. I have a PhD in genetics from Columbia University, and also very much interested in public health. I'll tell you about my trajectory soon. I'll start telling you a little bit about myself, and then I'll tell you about what I'm doing right now and how I got there and how does this in my head makes sense. I'll just tell you about my trajectory from the basic science, just being by myself in the laboratory, to a setup that actually fits a lot more with the way I see the world and the way I want to kind of leave my mark in this one. already it's been said, I'm from Cuba. I attended University of Havana, where I got my bachelor's in biochemistry. One thing quite interesting about this is that Cuba has free access to education for everyone, right? So access was not an issue. However, thinking about this, I realized that equal resources and opportunities were not available to all, right? And it makes me think back about this moment in my life and how I was one of two people in my block who graduated from college, right? So I'm from a very poor neighborhood in the city of Havana. That wasn't something I was thinking at the time, but it has been in my mind, since. And then I joined the PhD program at Columbia University. I was in the Uptown campus in the Department of Environmental Health Sciences. I was quite interested in making some sort of transition or learning a little bit more about the impact but the research I was doing there was still very much basic science research, right? So you can see it there. I'm studying the DNA replication fork and studying how, when there is damage in the DNA replication fork, repairs takes place, how does this overlaps with genetic recombination, what happens. I was studying this particular system, fission yeast that is not very well known, Schizosaccharomyces pombe. And pombe looks a lot like human cells. It really, I can still feel it. So it was a good system to study DNA replication. Now, challenges. My son actually was the one who said, Mom, why don't you put the challenges on every slide? And I was like, oh, such a bright kid. What are the challenges, right? So I was the first and for a long time, the only minority in this PhD program. Many times when I was in the lab, people would walk in and be like, oh, where is the, cleaning whatever, or how does the centrifuge work? And I'm like, sure, I can tell you, but, you should figure it out on your own too, And what I was talking about before, right, this imposter syndrome, this idea that I sneaked in, I got into the program, but they don't really, they don't know I don't belong here. They haven't noticed, and in minutes, somebody's going to find me out and I should run. I'm coming from Cuba, running is something that, you do quite often. So, I was just like, I'm running again and I will have to something, right? So this was a challenge, telling myself I belong here, telling myself my project is extremely valid, telling myself, right, I am as good as anyone else in this program, right? That was certainly a challenge. And then I had a personal challenge on the topic of work. So I decided I wanted to do something that felt in some way better. Studying DNA replication was great, but you couldn't talk about that to anybody. And it was so abstract, right? So I decided that I wanted to do something else, and I applied to the cancer epidemiology program at Columbia. And this was a risk. All of a sudden, I had all these training in the basic research and the basic sciences, but I really didn't have any epidemiology training. I had an MPH, I had taken Epi 1, and that was it, right? Epidemiology seemed more like a unknown. It was so strange to think about it that way. The person is there, and then it's not there, and then you count it, and then you don't count it, and then you count it again, and I was like, oh my God, can I do this, right? But what really made me make that decision was like I wanted to do work in the sciences that had an impact that I could see more clearly on people's lives, right? I wanted to be able to explain what I was doing and have a goal, a long-term goal. At this point, I was thinking more, what am I going to do when I finish? What is going to be my long-term goal? So anyway, so I take all of my expertise in molecular biology and I put it into the development of biomarkers. And I had a lot of fun with that. Basically, I'll tell you about the data in a little bit. What challenges did I face in this part of my career? So there wasn't much representation There were not professors in my department that looked like me, or that looked like most people in this room either. There were not many people outside when you went to conferences either. There were groups, and I joined groups at AACR or other organizations that felt more like there is support here. There is support to come to the meetings. There is a way. There is ways to connect to people. And the second challenge also comes, possibly combine the fact that I am an immigrant with the fact that I'm a minority, that intellectual and social capital, those connections that people can have, they were not available to me. So I had to go and reach out to professors, PIs, people who were doing projects I wanted to be part of, and I kind of have to find my way to get into those projects. I didn't have a name they could pronounce. I didn't, everybody just called me Lissette because doctor, that was too complicated. And, I didn't really know anyone. So that was a challenge. I feel strongly that I made a lot of connections because I forced myself to take that step. I see that as a positive. It has given me a perspective on how to approach things that I don't know or circumstances in research. So, it was, but it's important to recognize that this is there, right? That this happens. So I decided after finishing my fellowship that I wanted to teach at a public institution. I only applied to public institutions. In retrospect, maybe that wasn't the wisest, but it's okay, it worked out. And I joined John Jay College 6 years ago as an assistant professor of molecular biology. What are the challenges? I'm still the only Latinx in my department. I'm still mistaken as support staff, often, or a student sometimes. Older student, let's just say. My colleagues in the elevator, some people would look at me like, doing your homework, right? I'm like, yeah. Or in the entrance in the building, what is your schedule? What is your classes schedule? I was like, well, faculty. So these things keep happening, right? And it's okay. It will take time for this to change, and we're part of that change. That's how I see it. So what are my goals as joining John Jay? There were two main things that are quite important to me that I felt I could accomplish with this position. The first one was actually become that role model that I didn't have when I was in grad school or before. And while some of my colleagues at Columbia felt like, oh, you're going to be teaching a lot and you're not going to be doing a lot of research, I felt like it's quite important. At some point, we have to change that tie, and somebody has to be there to be that role model with experience to talk to students. I have some examples. It's been quite exciting to work with a lot of these students. I can tell you about that a little later. And the other thing was the challenge of creating a research program that was independent, that was meaningful to me, and then that was fundable. And that students could actually be part of that research. Because mentoring students only happens, it happens in the classroom, but that one-on-one, working together, hoping to convince the student that, yes, you are not an imposter, you can do this, happens in the laboratory every day. So that's kind of my trajectory. That's where I am now. I wanted then to tell you a little bit more about what I do, what I research, and how it connects all together, basically. So at some point in this trajectory, I started looking at epigenetic markers. Epigenetic was in fashion, basically. Everybody's like, oh my God, the epigenome is so cool, and what is it? And let's figure it out. And for me, it was more about how can you measure this? Let's just measure, right? And that's basically how the process started. Why in chronic diseases? This is my major interest, is because epigenetic changes have been connected to chronic diseases. That link exists. It has been proven. Actually, most of the links in these in this figure, you can see the dotted lines mean they're hypotheses that suggest this is happening, but chronic diseases have been certainly linked to changes to the epigenome. These we know, they're relevant. Our epigenome changes. I'll tell you what the epigenome is in a moment. We'll do a little thing, and hopefully you will do it with me. The second thing that I find fascinating about it is that it's modifiable. We can change it. Here is data from a study I carried out a few years ago. This was a weight and dietary intervention in Hispanic and Afro-Caribbean women. And here you can see, and I don't know if this points, so I'm just going to finger. You can see metabolic markers and then different dietary and physical activity markers changing, significantly changing. I don't think physical activity became quite significant, but the rest of them were significant. And this was only a 6-month dietary and exercise intervention. So you can certainly see the potential there. This is not the only study, but I thought I will bring my own. Why not? So what is epigenetics? And then I hope you guys are into interactive things, because I'm going to ask you to do something in a minute. Okay, so epigenetics come from epi and genetics, epi above, right? Genetics origin, above the genome level. And it was actually described in 1942. So it's not that old. It's not even 100 years old as a concept. And I love this figure because it actually, even when it's really old, it kind of tells you what it means. It basically means that all the different tissues in our body, all of them have the same genetic information, but they can end up having different functions or doing different jobs, right? So it starts there in the little ball, and then it can end, depending on different circumstances, in different places, right? So the DNA sequence is the same, but the epigenetic information is different. It's that other layer of regulation of how the genes become, the proteins do the work that they are supposed to do that changes. So now I'm going to ask you to understand it better, to bear with me and listen to a little piece of a song, 2 songs, the same song twice. Okay.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going anywhere.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going anywhere.
Just a city boy, born and raised in South Detroit. He took the midnight train going anywhere.
So how are these two different is the question. I don't know if this is your jam, I know. There is actually a website that tells you, which songs, different versions, are the top 10, whatever, of all lifetime, something like that. So that's what I found, this pair. But yes?
So in the first song, Journey, the instruments are providing the rhythm. The second one, the rhythm is provided by the voices.
Okay. Anything else?
Second one is duet.
Uh-huh.
First one is not.
Okay. Anything else? A little different? A little the same? So we think about the genetic code as the actual score. You know, somebody wrote it, these are the lyrics, this is the music, this is what is supposed to happen. And we think about the epigenetic code as that interpretation. It could be two people singing, it could be one person, it could have these acoustic instruments, it could have that other thing. So I find that this is the best way to describe what the epigenome is, basically. It's a different way in which the same information ends up giving us different phenotypes. That's basically what it is, being that, you know, you guys are all understand all these. Tissues in the body end up having different epigenetic makeups. And in the circle there, in the blue circle, you can see two different tissues. So on the top, we have just epithelial tissue, and in the other one, some red blood progenitor cells. And you can see, basically, well, you don't know what that means. It just different dots represent different epigenetic makeup. And the line will be the genetic information that is identical in between those. So what are the types of epigenetic modifications? There are three types of main epigenetic modifications. DNA methylation, histone modifications, and microRNA levels. All of these epigenetic modifications in some way regulate how the chromatin is together, basically it's put together. So what you have here is heterochromatin. Heterochromatin is really tight. There is no access to the transcription machinery to make proteins, right? So, and euchromatin on the other end is relaxed, is open. Transcription machinery has access to the DNA and can make proteins. Epigenetic mechanisms regulate how this chromatin is tied. What we're seeing here are nucleosomes. Nucleosomes are basically the way in which our DNA is packaged, our genome is packaged. These are histones, the things in the middle that look like a drum thingy, are the histones. And the green is the DNA that is wrapped around the histones and then creating this very condensed structure, right? So this is what the epigenome actually regulates. So we'll talk just about DNA methylation because we don't have a lot of time. And this is actually the better known epigenetic mark. It's better known because it's on the DNA and it's sitting on the DNA, and DNA is very friendly. You can always count the DNA will be there. And what it is actually the addition of a methyl group to a cytosine. And this cytosine is always next to a guanine. And we call these CPG sites, basically. What happens is if the methyl group is added, you can see there how two methyl groups are facing each other in the helix, and they're disrupting the helix in some way, and in that way disrupting the access to the genetic information that is on the DNA helix. That's how it alters the expression of it. So in that same, under that same thing, I'll try over here. It seems like a lot of walking, but if you have more DNA methylation, you will have less transcription, and if you have less DNA methylation, you will have more transcription, right? So more methyl groups, more bulky, less access, less methyl groups, more open, more available. Is that kind of the paradigm? So what kind of changes in DNA methylation can you observe in disease? There are two main changes that are observed. One of them is the loss of global DNA methylation. Our genome is mostly made of what we call junk DNA. This DNA is there because of evolutionary reasons, and we keep it silent. And one way in which we keep it silent is by having it heavily methylated. And the other way is an increase in DNA methylation at gene promoters, and I'll talk more about that in a second. So here is what happens in disease, in the disease state. So the loss of DNA methylation of the repetitive elements leads to what we call genomic instability, and this is at the base of many of the chronic diseases, right? When we're thinking about individual genes, a group of genes, let's say around 60% of the genes that we have in our genome have a lot of CPG sites in their promoter region. So if these regions become very methylated, these genes are not going to be expressed. If we need them for something, then all of a sudden we won't have them. That's kind of how we think about this. The fact that there is a loss of global DNA methylation and an increase of DNA methylation in certain regions has been something that the scientific community has not been very happy with, because it is a contrast, and there is a lot of argument about, well, and why, and when, and that has made epigenetics a little bit less of the favorite in, or at least DNA methylation. So I'll tell you just quickly about my studies on epigenetic biomarkers, mostly DNA methylation biomarkers in breast cancer. I did all of these studies in the Breast Cancer Family Registry and the New York side of the Breast Cancer Family Registry that actually is a large, very large cohort of women with all belonging to families at high risk of breast cancer. Okay? So the question that we have is, how can we learn about breast cancer risk from this population? So this is just data from our findings. Actually, we found that those individuals who had lower levels of DNA methylation were at higher risk, and this is determined by the odds ratios and approximation of risk, than those that had higher levels. We also found that women who had an extensive family history of breast cancer had a lower level of global DNA methylation. Now, these women were healthy. They were those that had never had breast cancer, but they were in families that were at high risk. And you can still see, I'm not going to point, here, the confidence intervals are negative for that particular marker. When you're thinking about what is the number of first-degree relative, if the number is more than 3, there is more than 3 people in that family that have breast cancer, then the DNA methylation of this woman that has not had disease, that is completely healthy, is still lower. In a recent study that we actually have not published yet, I kept thinking as a basic scientist, why is this happening? And one of my ideas was this probably has some genetic basis. There might be some susceptibility factor that is accounting for these DNA methylation changes. So I decided to actually measure the levels of expression of the protein that does the DNA methylation, right? And then when I looked at it, actually those with the less amount of protein are also at higher risk of breast cancer. The protein function is represented at the top. More interestingly, and we're just writing this paper, is that those individuals that have a BRCA1 mutation are not the ones that have the lowest levels. The lowest levels are in those that do not have a BRCA1 mutation. And this actually is not good, because it's never good to be in a high-risk family or anything, but what this is telling us is that for those individuals who don't have the mutation, this might be a susceptibility factor that increases their chances of developing breast cancer, right? So we might be onto something here. The last interesting thing in this particular project was actually that these levels of DNA methylation by extent of breast cancer family history change are different depending on race, ethnicity of the individual. So when you break it by race, ethnicity, you find different. On the top, we're actually looking at, I just highlighted white women with a mother who has breast cancer versus the one that doesn't have a mother who has breast cancer. And then you can see that that one that has a mother who has breast cancer has particularly lower levels of this marker. That is not the case if the woman is Hispanic, right? And in the lower level, we are actually dividing the individuals by the number of siblings who have breast cancer. And when you look at that, you find that Hispanics actually have a lower DNA methylation of a particular marker if they have more siblings. So there are disparities here in DNA methylation levels by ethnicity. So I took that and I wrote a grant that has been just recently funded at NIH, where I propose to carry out a case series where I'm studying women who have had breast cancer, and I'm investigating the DNA methylation biomarkers, associations with mortality, and because I'm very much interested in Hispanics, I included here an ancestry panel. Why? Because Hispanics are this heterogeneous group of individuals that are just called Hispanics when they get to the clinic, but the reality is that Hispanics represent a mix of races, and we really don't understand very well how this impacts their mortality. So that's what I'm working on right now. I think I am right on the edge of time. I'm working on another project, and I just wanted to highlight this very quickly. Looking actually at rheumatoid arthritis and inflammation. I'm doing this project with Dr. Milena Rodriguez, who is here. And this is a pilot study, and this is very powerful because this comes to the fact that we're in this very small school, and how do we design a project that we can actually carry out with undergraduates. And I just wanted to tell you that basically this is what we did, and most of this work was carried out by undergraduates. The recruitment happened at the hospital, but everything else and the measurements were carried by undergraduates. Okay, so that brings us to, the end almost. To wrap it up, what are really the highlights, right? Finding collaborators in other places when you don't have the resources to do all the work. No quitting on your favorite project. Yay. Mentoring undergraduate students. Actually, 2 of my students one of them is at Princeton University now getting her PhD, and the other one just got accepted to Cornell. So I'm very excited for them, and I'm very happy they were instrumental in these projects. And, actually finding funds to do what you want to do. And there is a lot of people to thank, so I want to make sure they are all included here. Without the support of everyone at John Jay, at CUNY, and my collaborators in other places here and at Columbia, I couldn't have done basically any of this work and offer any of this to the students. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Delgado-Cruzata.
Should I?
So thank you very much to Dr. Delgado-Cruzata for coming here today. And she talked about connections. And as women, we don't often connect. And we will not be given platforms to demonstrate our work. So how did we get Dr. Delgado-Cruzata here? Thank you to Dr. Daniel Hale, but it was Dr. Alvarez. So Dr. Alvarez is one of our eQuip fellows and soon to be transport fellows who told me about this remarkable work that's being done at John Jay. And it was a connections. It was really connections. And I know Dr. Blackstock, in addition to being triple boarded internist, geriatrician, and nephrologist, was also a scholar. And we really need to support each other through mentorship and through collaborative scholarship. And I'm just so thankful that you are here to share your journey with us. And if there are students here, this is the type of research that can be done without a tremendous amount of resources, but with just motivation and a really strong desire to unravel reasons why diseases are prevalent in our community. So just thank you so much for joining us and for sharing, again, your journey with us. Thank you.
Please have a seat. Are there any questions? Just want to make sure if people had any questions, they had the opportunity to ask them. So we wanted to give you something. So thank you for taking the time to be here. Today you'll be our honorary downstate faculty member. So we're going to give you a downstate sweatshirt, and we're also going to give you a mug. And one of our stress bears, so when it gets too hard for you.
That is so great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So it's amazing to see all of the work being done in our community. You know, the work that Dr. Delgado-Cruzata is doing is very critical to our, not just our community, but communities worldwide, to make sure people understand the importance of epigenetic research. And I know that's being done here at Downstate as well, so I hope her speech has given you even more license to continue doing what you're doing. At this time, we'd like to switch over to our Dr. Dale Blackstock Award ceremony. So we have all of our awardees sitting up front, excuse me. And I'm going to ask Dr. Oni Blackstock to come and join me for the first awards. Is Shamika here?
Is there anything you want to say while you're here? I mean, has anyone heard of Never Surprise Your Friends? I didn't know I'd be speaking, but anyway, love Dr. Osaze, so thank you so much. This was a very special place for our mother. We grew up at SUNY Downstate in Kings County, and so to be here, this is the third year. Thank you so much to Dr. Booten Foster for really recognizing our mother and continuing her legacy. She was a phenomenal person. I think when people meet us, they maybe get a glimpse of who she was, but that probably doesn't really fully capture her. She was a very kind and generous and wonderful person who was constantly curious, taking like piano lessons, violin lessons while she was still working as a physician, mentoring doctors in training. And so it is really an honor and a privilege to be able to be here representing her and to thank you so much for continuing her legacy. So thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have Dr. Oni Blackstock join me in presenting our first award for today. It's important for us to remember to honor the people that are doing such amazing work here at Downstate. I mean, we're all working very hard for the same goal and the same mission. There are some people who stand out because they have gone above and beyond, and it's important to recognize them for all that they have done. And this first individual that we would like to present an award to is the Dr. Dale Blackstock Award for Excellence in Mentoring. This is someone who has worked diligently, not just with students, but with residents, and has trained many of the people here and mentored them in their fields, specifically in nephrology, and has also worked diligently with the new curriculum that we're actually utilizing in the College of Medicine. So the first person I'd like to call up is Dr. Jean McCrae. Now, Dr. Jean McCrae has actually just retired from Downstate. So we're very sorry to lose you. You said today? Decided to take her award and run. But we're so glad you're able to join us. We hope you have an amazing retirement. Are there any words you'd like to share with us?
Actually, a couple. Just a couple. I was lucky enough to know Dale Blackstock. Our interests were exactly overlapping in nephrology and geriatrics, and we were colleagues and friends for quite a bit of time before she was taken from us prematurely. She was a wonderful woman, and I'm very touched and honored to have this award in her name. And of course, I want to thank her family and the Office of Diversity, Education, and Research for making sure that her memory is still living here and that her legacy is being carried on.
Our next awardees that we will be distributing are the Diversity Champion Awards. And these awards are specifically for those who have done above and beyond to help diversify the fields in the different colleges that we have here at Downstate. Our first awardee is Dr. Amy Afable, who has done incredible work in the School of Public Health.
I just wanted to thank you. This Bronx native is proud to represent diversity at Downstate in New York City.
Next up, we have Dr. Jean McGue. Dr. McGue is in the Department of Nursing and has helped our office in so many instrumental ways. In terms of diversity, she has allowed at least dozens, if not hundreds of students shadow in her facilities, make sure that they understand what the field of nursing has to contribute, and to try to give them as much information as possible in terms of their occupational outlook, to make sure that they know exactly what it means to be a nurse, how hard it is to work in that field, and how beneficial it is, how rewarding it is at the end of the day, all of the work that you've done to heal so many people. Dr. Jean McHugh has done this tirelessly, and today she couldn't be here because she's still working. She's working very hard to continue the tradition, but in her stead, we have our Chief Nursing Officer, Dr. Teetle, here to help us present that award. So she will take
Thank you
us.
so much. I do have a few comments from Jean. Jean is traveling in Europe and continuing her work there, and she asked me to share a few words with you. And she is incredibly honored to be selected for the Downstate's Diversity Champion Award. And she's saddened that she's not here in person, but please know that she is here in spirit with all of you. She applauds the work, that of the Office of Diversity, Education, and Research, and the many notable women who have led the way in respecting and valuing diversity, equity, and inclusion. Lastly, she wanted me to convey her heartfelt appreciation for all those involved in Women's History Month celebration and the award itself. So, I thank you.
And next we have Dr. Caitlin Odo. Dr. Caitlin Odo is in the Department of Microbiology and Pathology here at Downstate, and she is another one who has brought in dozens of students to mentor under her. She has worked specifically with our REACH program here at Downstate and also with our undergraduate summer research program in order to give students an opportunity to actually understand what research is all about. As you can see from our keynote today, not many students of different backgrounds have had the same type of exposures as other people have had, and it's important and critical for all of us to give those students opportunities, and Dr. Caitlin Odo has tirelessly allowed us to give students, even when she doesn't have the space in her lab, she makes the space to make sure that they always have the opportunity that's necessary so we can continue to diversify our fields throughout research. So please, Dr. Odo. And now we will be giving out awards for outstanding service. These are people, again, who have gone above and beyond the call of duty. Whenever you need something, they are there. Even when you don't expect them to be there, they already anticipate your needs. So one person that I'm so pleased to bring up to you today is Miss Diane D'Souza, someone who's worked with everyone. All of you know Diane because she's the one who contacts you and says, where are your requisitions? Where are your travel? Are you following instructions when I ask you to do your P-card work? Are you following state regulations? We understand how important it is. And it's hard in her position because she has to be the taskmaster. But she's doing that to make sure that our institution is always in compliance. And it's important that we honor people like her because she keeps us in check and keeps us in line to make sure we can continue to do the work that we do. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I don't know if there's anyone who's ever walked the halls and not seen Miss Gardner. She is someone who always has a smile on her face, and the first thing she says to you is, good morning, God bless, how are you doing? Everyone here has had to have heard that at least one time in their time here at Downstate, if not every day that you pass her. She is someone who does her work with a smile on her face, and no matter how hard your day has been, you see her and you can't help but smile. You can't help but think, this is going to be a great day, because when you look at her face, you know that it's going to be a great day. She works tirelessly in the paint shop, has made sure that just aesthetically pleasing to us, our institution looks the way it's supposed to look. So we have to honor those people to make sure that our workspace is a clean, comfortable, and aesthetic place to work in. So we want to say thank you so much for what you've done, Ms. Gardner. If you could please come forward.
Thank you. I'm humbled.
I just want to say one thing. When we come as FMND and we come to your areas, we just ask you to work with us. We don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. We don't want to take you out your comfort zone. We just want to make sure that when you're in your areas, in your space, it's beautiful, because that represents your space. You're more productive, you're more happy, and it works for us and it works for you. So just be patient with us. We're trying to keep you happy, and we're trying to keep the facility where the patients come in and they love this place. Because perception is not always the truth, it's what they actually see, feel, and actually. And another thing, when you all walk through the hallways and you see the patient, just take 2-3 minutes, walk them to the areas, direct them. Just be nice, because you don't know who God has put in your path. It could be your realtor, your banker, your billionaire, your donator to this facility, you don't know. It could be a politician's parent, somebody. Just, kindness. We're in our last days. Be mindful and respectful towards each other.
Miss Lakia Maxwell. Oh my goodness, what can I say? She has worked so tirelessly in the Brooklyn Health Disparity Center. The amount of grants that come out of this institution, many of them are coming out of the Department of Medicine, they're coming out of our office, they're coming out of the Brooklyn Health Disparity Center, and she's working until 10, 11 o'clock at night to make sure that those grants are being done. She's working together with Dr. Straker, with Dr. Salafu, with Dr. Booten Foster to make sure that we're bringing more money into this institution. But it's time for us to just say thank you to her for all the time that she spent here.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for recognizing me. Thank you for recognizing the hard work of the Brooklyn Health Disparity Center. I love being here. I love working with every one of you, all the doctors. Hopefully I'm here for many more years.
Now, who does not know Miss Helen Ponce? Working hard in the College of Medicine's Dean's office, administration to everyone. I don't think there's ever a time I haven't needed to get something from you. So I felt like we always come to you. You always have the answers. If you don't have the answers, you always find the answers. You always take the time to get us what we need. She is part of everything here at Downstate, even during her time when she was working in student affairs. And those students still come to her for the same role. So you actually play dual roles right now. And it's just that we have so much love for you here. We know that you've worked so hard. The students love you so much. The administrators are so thankful for what you've been able to do for us. So we want to say thank you to you today.
I just want to say thank you when I'm humble.
Marsha Scott. She's already covering her face because she's very shy. But Marsha, again, the amount of paperwork I see in your office with all the requisitions that come in, I've never seen such organization. She can find anything at the drop of a hat. And I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of papers on your desk that you have to take care of for the entire institution. I know you've moved from budget to real estate, but I'm sure what you're doing there is just as challenging and has benefited the institution just as much. I know it's a hard role to work in finance. You know, everybody has high expectations. They're always wondering where their paperwork is, where their money is. Hopefully they have money. You know, can I afford to do anything? And you get a million questions a day. And I want to say thank you. The office wants to say thank you, and the institution wants to say thank you. So come on up. Thank you for this award. My buddy, Miss Ann Schombrun, our registrar. I have seen Ann be here at 7 o'clock in the morning. I've seen her leave at 10 o'clock at night. She is always working in reference to the students. Everything is about the students. And I've seen how excited they get when they come into your office and they talk to you about what's going on in their lives.
excited.
Well, for the most part, they know that what you do is for them, and they see it. You've always worked diligently to make sure that they get what they need. I've always seen you do miracles to try to make sure that they are getting all of what they need in terms of their rotations, in terms of just their experience at Downstate, anything in terms of transcripts, whatever. You know, most people don't think about what has to happen in the registrar's office, how much stress it could be to make sure that these students are actually graduating on time, that they're getting their rotations the way they're supposed to. And I see how late you work and how hard you work, and you do it quietly. You never complain. You never talk about how hard it is to be here. You just get the work done. At least you don't complain to me. But we want, and I've seen you with your IT issues and how difficult it's been for you to be able to transition from program to program, and how you've actually just mastered it and be able to move on anyway and not allow the students to see any challenges behind the scenes. So we want to say thank you so much for all you've done. Oh, that's right, she's a singer. I don't know how many of you knew that. She has an album.
Actually, I would like to thank, I'm going to cry for a second. I want to thank a wonderful woman who came before me who worked with Dr. Richard Troutman as his illustrator for his textbook. She was my stepmother, Virginia Cantarella, and she was here at Downstate long before I ever thought Downstate was a place. I would work here. So thank you, Virginia, my stepmother, I love you, and thank you for this award.
So now there's another award out there, and this person doesn't know that they're actually receiving it. Someone who, without her, none of this could ever happen. Yes. I'm going to ask my students to come forward to help me with this one. This person is always anticipating the needs of our office, has always made sure that whatever we need, it's done before we even ask for it, has worked tirelessly on all of our programs, on every grant that's written in our office, every program, every cultural event, everything that we do here, she is a part of it and has made sure that it is successful, that it is flawless, doing all of our paperwork, and now just serving as our program administrator and making sure that everything we do is done in excellence. So we definitely wanted to make sure to honor her today. She did not know she was being honored. So Ms. Shamika Bowman, can you please come to hide this from her. Because she is involved in everything. So I had to have this delivered to my house. It didn't come on time. I had to go to the post office and pick it up. I had to make up stories when I came in late so that people understood why I wasn't here, because I had to make sure that everything was done right, because that's how she would be. She would make sure that it's done right. And oh my goodness,
Well, since we're all crying, I'm okay, so she is my right hand, my left hand. I can call her on a Sunday morning, and she will answer services. I can call her on a Friday evening. I can call her and say, my son's school called, and she'll say, okay, Carla, I'll put an executive meeting on your schedule. So we love Ms. Bowman. We really could not do half of the things that we do in the office. She interacts with everyone. The students love her, and we love you. And our students wanted to say something special to her. Oh, okay. So our students are running out of electives, so don't tell anyone. Speaking of, run back into the OR. But they just, so you guys can please.
So I've known Ms. Bowman for a couple of years, even before I was coming to Downstate when I was an undergrad. And every step of the way, she will answer emails in 5 minutes. If there's something that you need, even if she's not the person to contact, she will find out. And when I told her that my dream was to start a health equity track during College of Medicine, my years, Ms. Bowman, without a doubt, just just jumped right into everything and just took on that work and helped us with it. Honestly, it would not exist if it wasn't for you. I owe so much of my
I just want to echo just the message that Ms. Bowman works extremely hard for the Office of Diversity, Education, and Research, and she works hard for all of us students, The brownies, it's funny that that's brought up, because I would come in every now and then, and whenever I had, just a little bit of time, and Ms. Bowman did a chicken, we should come in more often. And I was totally kidding. I was like, but mate, you guys never have food. The next day, she brings a pan full of baked pastries, and oh my goodness, that just shows she just goes out of her way just to make me and us students have a better day, a better experience. And at this time in my life, I was on surgery, so it was tough, just having a brownie was, exceptional. And Ms. Bowman answers my email at any time of the night. It's crazy. I can't believe she still even likes me, Those are just a few examples of why Ms. Bowman is just such an exceptional friend. I see her as a friend, right? And an exceptional SUNY Downstate leader. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. I like seeing it in front of people. Oh my God. Thank you.
I'd like to give a round of applause to all of our awardees today. Say thank you to the entire Downstate community. We recognize that all of you are working hard. I want to make sure that all of you feel that we know you're important. We know each role that you play is necessary, and without you, we could not be here as an institution. So thank you to all of you. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.